Hey, excuse the raspy voice. I'm in that West Coast smoke that makes the world look kind of post-apocalyptic, like one of my posters. But I wanted to have a quick discussion of something that came up with the release of a recent film, which I shall not name, but you'll figure it out soon enough. And that particular film disappointed, upset, offended a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. And one of them specifically is I want to talk about how it affected one of their target audiences, which would be the Chinese people, and something very near and dear to their cultural identity and philosophy and spirituality even, and that's the concept of qi and what it is and what it can do and what it can't do. As Han Solo would say, that's not how the Force works. And for you Star Wars fans, me included, even as that franchise itself progressed, the portrayal of the Force, there were some changes made that upset and offended certain hardcore fans in different ways. And it's kind of like that, but more profoundly. Believe it or not, there are more profound things. If you've got something that is very, very essential to your culture and your history and your identity and your philosophy and spirituality portrayed badly in that way to the point where it almost feels insulting or ridiculing, you do take that very personally and kind of hard. It's a lot like somebody making a movie where Jesus is a superhero, or Abraham Lincoln is like a vampire hunter, or World War I was started at the whim of some ancient Greek god. It's like, yeah, anyway, we did those things. But moving on, I wanted to kind of address this with 4 questions. And question 1 is what's qi? Question 2 is it real? Question 3, strangely enough, is does it matter? And then the 4th one is what can it do for you and not do for you in a semi-practical sense of the word. And I'm not an expert in this. I have studied different systems, modalities, traditions for about 45 years now, so I have my own personal grasp on it, and I'm going to try to answer these questions probably very badly in terms of how briefly each one of my answers is going to be. Obviously, they deserve a lot deeper explanations than I'm about to give you. Starting with the first one, what qi is. Well, again, there's a lot of people who can explain it to you better. But the fact is, different traditions and practices and modalities and nationalities, they have different visions of what this is specifically. I mean, essentially, it's energy. But how it works exactly and how it moves through the universe and the body and living things and how you can affect it and build it and nurture it and direct it or impede it and make use of it, that varies greatly, the different models that come into play. But if you were to get to that second question in terms of are any of those real? Can you detect them through modern scientific means? The answer would be no. That you cannot detect this energy that they're supposedly employing and developing and cultivating and directing. So in that sense, scientifically real? No. Getting us immediately to the third question, does it matter? I'm going to say not really, depending, which is going to be answered by the 4th question. Now I'm going to focus on 2 aspects of this. One would be more the health aspect of it, and the other one would be the physical performance aspect. Certainly there's more than that. But why I'm saying that, even though it's not scientifically proven or sound, but yet is still useful, is the concept of the user interface. All of you guys are watching me on some kind of device, right? Whether you're talking Android or PC or Mac or something like that. And in our modern times, we've created user interfaces that for us are very simplified and user-friendly and also visual. Most of these are visual. You've got a screen that you can touch and move things around on, and it responds to you and does the things that you think it should be doing. Or you've got a touchpad, or you've got a mouse that you're scrolling with or clicking on. Or as a video gamer, you've got a controller. And as you put input into that controller and do things with that controller, it makes your character or whatever on screen do specific things that you expect it to do. Respond in certain ways, and then also respond to other things that are happening on the screen. Now, most of us, unless we're really into computer science and programming, don't really stop to think about what's really happening inside the machine to make the things that we see happening happen. And we tend to oversimplify it, that it's just a user interface. That's the real part of the computer, and it's not. That's just something to make it user-friendly and understandable and useful to us. but it doesn't approach what's really going on in terms of the signals coming from those controls, going into processors and going into programming, into code and command lines, triggering other processes to happen, and then as part of that, the system and the programming kicking out images that show it doing the thing that makes sense to us, in terms of that icon or program or app or whatever responding, or game responding. And in many senses, I see chi systems and modalities, I'm going to use those words instead of others, those models, that seems to be a lot about how they really do work functionally. That it was a way for people to get into processes that they didn't otherwise understand the internal workings of, or didn't have direct access to those internal workings in a practical scientific sense. So I want to imagine you sending one of those devices back hundreds to thousands of years in time, or bringing someone from those times forward, like this is Bill and Ted, and yes, I love those movies. But not some superstitious, stereotypical primitive who's going to think it's like magic or demons or something, but somebody who is rational, intelligent, thoughtful, and probably has the best education that their era can provide. They're going to approach this device semi-scientifically. They're going to try to figure out how it works based on how they understand the universe. So they're going to try some things systematically and then see if those results can be replicated, and then replicated by others, which is science. You really want to approach it that way. And a lot of these traditional practitioners did that I'll talk about. They didn't just assume it was superstition and go with it. They did a lot of experimentation to see if they could produce results. So if that person can figure out how to make that device respond, they will create a model in their brains about how that's working. And as long as it's creating the results they want it to create, they're going to continue to go with it. Does it have anything necessarily to do with the scientific explanations behind electrical engineering, computer science, software and programming? It's probably not. They're not at that level, of understanding at this point, any more than we can figure out, hyperspace and stuff like that in science fiction. We come up with kind of flaky explanations in pseudoscience, and we tend to label chi science as pseudoscience, but that doesn't mean you should discount it. So let's talk about, what it can do and what it can't do. And the movie, I kind of get where the movie's coming from. In the movie, what you've got is somebody portrayed to have a lot of this chi stuff from birth, and therefore they're instantly superhuman and they really don't have to work at it. And you Star Wars fans, it's going to sound like something similar that some of you guys got offended by, so you kind of get it on that level. But that's, as Han Solo would say, not how the Force works. And I'm not discounting that people can have natural ability. And we'll talk about that in a couple of different ways, but you still have to develop it. And it's only going to do certain things. It's not going to do superhuman kind of things like make you fly or be telepathic or telekinetic or something. This is not, not the X-Men or whatever. In the realm of this portrayal, this wire work, I know why they did it. It's big spectacle, and they were kind of basing it on what they saw in other popular martial arts movies like Crouching Tiger. It looks fancy, but in a way, it's kind of insulting to the reality, especially those practitioners who really invest a lot in the reality and also the real performance. And they put a lot of work into that to be overshadowed by some really silly special effects and basically cheats. In other similar kind of applications across other arts for humans, think of like Cirque du Soleil, where right now the big Vegas shows, they use a lot of spectacular wire work. It's a great spectacle for the audience, and it's pretty. And I'm not disrespecting the stunt people and gymnasts who do the wire work, because it is impressive physical skill, and yes, it's actually dangerous. There have been some tragedies that have proven that. But I have also known some people in Cirque and other similar kinds of circuses, probably not the circuses you're thinking of, that can do phenomenal, unbelievable physical feats through a combination of talent and a lot of hard work shaped by creativity. Think about dance. And yes, I'm into dance. You might have some natural talent or some natural ability, or you're built for it or whatever. But you still have to do a lot of training and a lot of hard work to reach a level of performance at that art to be impressive. And even if you've got a high level of physical skill, which in itself is beautiful, a really great dancer has more than that. They have expression, they have emotion, they have intention. Things that we're going to talk about in terms of visualization and expression and things like that. that reflect back on some of these chi modalities. But at the same time, we recently got hit with Cats, the movie, and if you've seen that, or at least the clips and previews, you kind of have a sense of what my issue is with it. It's one thing to see Cats on a stage where you've got live performers with skill and expression singing and dancing, and that's beautiful and impressive. But in a movie, you know there's editing and special effects, and that kind of cheapens it. It's very much like seeing a live dancer at the height of their art doing something amazing, and then watching a cartoon do the same thing. And yeah, the cartoon might be pretty, but it lacks something essential, and almost feels like an insult to the real practitioner on a certain level, the real artist. Now, what it can actually do for you and not do for you, I'm going to talk about the two different areas of this, one of which being health. Think of it as a user interface. It might be able to get you access to systems that you would otherwise be very frustrated in accessing in terms of the mind-body connection and physiology and some of your autonomic and involuntary systems and neurological systems. And it can then show some interesting effects for health in different ways. Now, think about it as, one of those moments where you just hurt yourself. You just sustained an injury, and in the house available to you at hand, you've got, rest and ice and elevation and heat and maybe, some Tylenol or ibuprofen in the cabinet or whatever it is, or maybe you just scream and yell and curse for a while. That might help a little bit. But sometimes that's not going to cut it. You're going to need more to treat it. You're going to need to see a medical professional for some serious medical attention, maybe even surgery. And if you don't do that, you're going to regret it. And that's kind of what we're talking about with chi-based medicine and traditional medicine. And I've known a lot of practitioners who are MDs, they've got Western medical licenses, but they're also traditional practitioners, and the thoughtful ones know how to draw that line between the two, what one is good for versus the other, and how they work together. There are certain things one can do pretty well and certain things another can do. There's also a matter of personal choice and preference that falls into this equation as well. In Western medicine, there is a thing known as active versus passive treatment, and if you've never heard those terms before, I'll kind of sum it up. Passive treatment is what you usually think about when you go to a doctor. You have a problem and you go to somebody with the intent that they're going to fix it for you, that they're going to give you a prescription or maybe a procedure or a surgery, and your investment, other than the stupid amount of money you're paying in countries like this, is minimal in terms of your effort. You go to get fixed. Whereas an active treatment is when you go to the practitioner and they basically give you homework. They tell you to go home and change your lifestyle, change your diet, meditate, exercise, get out of that stressful job, move to a different place, all these things that you may or may not be willing to do. And that's a matter of personal preference and experience. Some people are really going to like that passive treatment, doctor, just fix me, versus taking the time and the investment to do the work themselves. And in a lot of situations, though, there's both. For instance, you get that injury, there may be some pain meds and there may be some casting or bracing or surgery, but you're probably also going to have to get the homework done too, the physical therapy, the occupational therapy, which is absolutely active and is going to put a lot of demand on you, and you may or may not want to do it. So, but in combination, those two things work really, really well, and that's something that's being recognized. Now, when it comes to physical performance, you've got a similar kind of thing. You think about it as a user interface, and some of these models give you access into your musculoskeletal system, your neurology, your mind-body coordination to improve your performance, to make it more efficient and effective, so that the subjective result of that, and sometimes the observable result of that as well, what appears to be increased strength, speed, coordination, balance, sensitivity, things like that. You can show it in terms of increased performance. And in that sense, similar things are used by other physical practitioners of arts and things, including professional athletes. Can you get increased strength, speed, coordination skills from straight up physical training? Yes, you can, but you can also enhance how those things work with things like breathing and visualization and meditation and certain changes to your body mechanics and things like that that make things more efficient. So even professional athletes use some of these things, or some version of them. They might not call them chi or whatever, but they use some version of this to improve their own performance on the field or the court or whatever it happens to be, just like other kinds of physical artists will do it, or even creative artists will do it. So knowing what it's good for and what it's not. Is it going to make you an instant master? No. Is it going to make you fly like Superman? No. Is it going to make you telekinetic or telepathic and ready to try out for the X-Men? No. But Western equivalents, the combination of training things, you could get to it again physically or with some of these traditional practices or hybrids of both. You might aspire to be something like a Batman or a Green Arrow or a Black Widow. And in the traditional systems, there are legends of what the height of chi practitioners could attain. And those would be kind of superhuman, but more in the realm of something like a Captain America or a Black Panther, where you have what appears to be superhuman strength, speed, coordination. Also, resilience to injury and faster healing. And back to that other thing, good health and vitality. And one of the other measures they'll look for is, long life. Do you live longer and maintain your health longer than the average person? That's a good tangible sign, to the point where, functional immortality would be something they would consider a legendary thing, but not a real thing. And supposedly they'll document cases of people living to well over 100 and still being functional. And that's, there's a lot of ways to get to that point as a human. Some of it is just natural inborn genetics and things like that, but some of it is your lifestyle and the things that you do to it, which cross over into some of these practices. So real versus unreal. This is also where I would warn people about the stuff that it can't do, because sometimes to sell a particular system to someone as a product, just like the wire work in the movies, some of these practitioners will claim it can do stuff that it really can't. And if you put faith in that and believe in it and invest in it and count on it, it can get you hurt or killed, or at very least humiliated. It's like really believing you can jump off a roof and fly just because you really believe, or somebody told you could fly if you did everything right. And then you try it, and what's really going to happen? And that's going to be a problem. In my personal experience, I mentioned in other videos, I was a sickly kid. So using some of these arts, and not just some of these more mystical sort of traditional things, but also studying the psychology of it for my own stress and mental health. And I did a lot of physical training. So, a combination of things, again, working well together, improved my health in many ways. And I still benefited from those improvements. I still appreciate those practices for that reason. Real or not, I've gotten benefit out of it. Now, with my injury that I talked about in other videos, my rather catastrophic damage here, I took some of my rehab time to get back into things like Qigong and Bagua and some of these traditional Qi-based practices. And because of that, the healing has progressed to a level that my Western practitioners, they were pretty damn surprised by. They didn't think I was going to get this far, even with major surgery, which I haven't had. Now, it hasn't hurt me, and I'm willing to do it. I appreciate doing it. I get other benefits out of doing it as well, like I said. And I'm not avoiding something critical to my health in the process. I'm not doing myself harm, and I'm seeing some kind of tangible benefit for myself. Now, am I ever going to believe I'm going to be telekinetic or fly or something like that? No. Do I believe that chi is a real thing? No, but I act as it is, just like I interact with my user interfaces like they're real too, like my visual interfaces are real. You just do it because it's easy and it appeals and it kind of works. And if it works for you, great. I'm not going to ever tell you not to do it unless you're crossing into some kind of high-risk, dangerous thing. But that's going to be true out of a lot of human behavior. If it works for you, great. Have your faith in it. Keep using it. I'm not going to tell you it's the wrong thing. But I would also, on the other hand, ask Hollywood, please, get away from the special effects and the enhanced stunts and give some respect to some of the phenomenal things that humans can do without wires and CGI. Please, me as a martial artist and practitioner would really like that over the wire work and the CGI and you know, the walking on water and flying through the sky kind of things you're portraying these people to do. Just for a change of pace, and at least maybe it'd also be a little bit more culturally sensitive while you're at it. So I hope you found this informative, entertaining, and not terribly offensive. So there's a comment section down below, and I hope to see you again.